The boy took part in the talent awakening ceremony. To everyone's shock, he awakened a mythic grade talent, Heaven-Earth Reversal, capable of reversing any effect applied to himself. Lin Yi froze on the spot, because only basic attacks that were not skills, or healing effects cast by priests, could actually harm him. Moreover, this mythic talent could be activated or deactivated at will, meaning that as long as Lin Yi did not wish to die, no enemy could ever kill him. After the talent test ended, Lin Yi walked down amid the crowd's stunned gazes. Since his talent was currently in a hidden state, everyone assumed he had awakened something mediocre. Otherwise, there would be no reason to hide it. At that moment, his childhood friend and school idol, Su Mumu, approached to ask about his awakening. Lin Yi brushed it off, saying it was just a few common talents, more than enough for dungeon runs. After all, exposing his strength too early, before fully growing, would only attract unwanted attention. Lin Yi then stepped before the goddess statue. According to protocol, talent awakening was followed by class selection. From a certain perspective, Heaven-Earth Reversal was nearly invincible, so its weaknesses had to be compensated for. By that logic, the priest class was the most suitable choice. A prompt appeared before the statue. You are the first student of this year to choose the priest class. Please confirm your class transfer. With unwavering resolve, Lin Yi confirmed his decision to become a priest. Whenever a student chose the priest class, the goddess statue would always reconfirm like this. 8 years ago, a powerful force distorted the space of Blue Star, allowing countless otherworldly creatures to invade through spatial rifts. Fortunately, along with the spatial collapse came the class system, enabling humanity to grow stronger by awakening random talents and choosing professions. The rise of class users eventually eradicated the invading creatures. A person's awakened talent would determine their future path. Talent quality was divided into 5 tiers: common, rare, legendary, demigod, and the extremely rare mythic. As class awakenings became widespread, a clear hierarchy formed among professions. Swordsmen and mages were the most sought after, followed by assassins, summoners, and warriors. Priests, due to low healing efficiency and limited damage output, remained at the very bottom of the professional food chain. With the class system growing increasingly mature, almost every profession except priest could achieve solo speed clears with powerful gear. Even in high-difficulty dungeons, skilled mages or summoners could fully replace a priest's role in a team. From that point on, the priest class became nothing more than a joke. However, Lin Yi chose this widely despised class precisely because of its exceptional survivability. For example, the priest's 2 starting skills, Heal and Clarity, restored HP and MP respectively, effectively granting him a mobile healing spring while dungeon crawling. Yet under the effect of his talent, Heaven-Earth Reversal, these effects were completely inverted, directly draining the target's HP and MP without being mitigated by defense or armor. In other words, it was pure true damage. Against enemies with magic resistance, Lin Yi's performance even surpassed that of mages, who were known for the highest damage output. The reverse clarity skill was even more outrageous. What seemed like a trivial mana drain could, at critical moments, cripple spellcasters by leaving them without enough mana to unleash their ultimate skills. Just as Lin Yi finished choosing the priest class, several students mocked him, saying that anyone who still chose priest must have trash tier talent and could only lie flat and freeload. At the same time, Su Mumu completed her awakening. She obtained the legendary talent Bionic Tier, which allowed her to summon otherworldly spirits to fight for her. Accordingly, she chose the mage class. In name, Su Mumu was also Lin Yi's younger sister. When otherworldly creatures first invaded Blue Star, humanity had not yet awakened the class system. To ensure Lin Yi's safe passage to a shelter, his parents sacrificed themselves, becoming food for the invading creatures. In the end, Lin Yi was taken in by Su Mumu's mother. That was why he had always yearned to grow stronger, to protect the family he still had. As the ceremony neared its end, Su Mumu approached and invited Lin Yi to form a dungeon party together. Lin Yi softly declined her offer. His plan was to solo clear, claiming all experience gains. Dungeons were the only path for class users to grow stronger. To prevent another invasion, humanity established academies for class users and recreated trial dungeons based on past disasters. Inside, class users could level up or obtain rare equipment, and solo runs maximized experience gains. Moreover, due to the unique nature of Heaven-Earth reversal, party play meant he would need to constantly guard against buffs applied by teammates. At that moment, an elder with white hair and youthful features stepped forward and warned him that even geniuses struggled against hordes of monsters, especially when choosing a class like Priest, which lacked offensive power. Lin Yi remained firm, thanked the principal for the advice, and expressed his confidence in completing a solo run. With that, he turned and entered the long open portal to the beginner dungeon, Wolf Forest. In the next instant, Lin Yi found himself in a vast, dim forest. This was the mandatory beginner trial dungeon for all class users, Wolf Forest. For newcomers, it posed a considerable challenge, though proper coordination usually prevented casualties. Healing springs were placed along the route, ensuring safety while further diminishing the priest value. Historically, the best result achieved here was only rank B. To achieve the highest possible rating and claim the full rewards, one had to enter the legendary arena zone within the dungeon. As Lin Yi advanced deeper into the forest, a large pack of wolf beasts appeared before him. They were bronze-rank monsters of Wolf Forest, wild wolves. In the next moment, they charged at him as a pack. Lin Yi let out a quiet chuckle as he watched them rush forward. He immediately activated his talent, Heaven-Earth Reversal. Then he cast Plunder, the reverse form of heal. In an instant, the wolves looked like puppets with their strings cut, collapsing one after another in midair. Even their bite skill was reversed by his talent, restoring 20 HP to Lin Yi instead. Their only bleed debuff was also inverted, turning into a recovery effect of 2 HP per second, combined with Imprison, the reversed form of Clarity. Once their mana was drained, the wolves were left almost completely incapable of attacking. Before long, Lin Yi had completely wiped out the wolves on the forest's outskirts. He then deactivated Heaven-Earth Reversal and cast Heal and Clarity again, restoring himself to full condition. By then, Lin Yi had reached level 2 and obtained 2 free attribute points. Without hesitation, he allocated all of them to Intelligence. Since taking damage in combat was virtually impossible, maximizing Intelligence allowed him to pursue instant kills. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, the principal stared in shock at the scene unfolding inside. He recalled that before the assessment, he had strictly forbidden students from entering the red-marked areas of the map, where a terrifying existence resided. The hidden boss of Wolf Forest, the Darkspawn Wolf King. Yet Lin Yi had stepped into that zone while soloing, leading the principal to suspect that Lin Yi possessed a talent above the legendary tier. The principal then shifted his attention to the monitoring window of the seed player, Su Mumu. At this point, Su Mumu's team had already eliminated part of the wolves roaming the forest's outskirts. However, due to a momentary misplay, they accidentally pulled the remaining wolves together, a situation that was extremely dangerous. In past years, many teams had failed their runs because of this. Yet with her legendary talent, Bionic Tear, combined with the mage's high-output Ice Convergence spell, Su Mumu swiftly wiped out the entire pack. Witnessing this, the principal praised her highly. Compared to Lin Yi's seemingly reckless approach, he clearly favored Su Mumu's steady and calculated style. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Lin Yi had already reached the respawn point of the Darkspawn Wolf King. Having continuously cleared monsters along the way, he was now level 4, giving him the strength to face the level 5 Wolf King head-on. From a distance, a pack of wolves could be seen surrounding the Wolf King, its most loyal guards. Their usual duty was to hunt food for the Wolf King's daily needs. Lin Yi took advantage of the moment when they split up to hunt, striking decisively and eliminating them one by one. As time passed, the Darkspawn Wolf King finally sensed something was wrong. By then, However, nearly all of its guards had already been wiped out. Lin Yi examined the Wolf King's status panel and discovered that its HP and attack power were over 50 times that of ordinary wolves. No wonder so many talented youths had fallen before it in the past. Unfortunately for the Wolf King, its opponent this time was Lin Yi. He activated Heaven-Earth Reversal, inverting the Wolf King's skills. Instantly, all damage dealt by the Wolf King became nullified. Lin Yi's gaze turned sharp with provocation, as if questioning whether this was all the Wolf King could do. The Darkspawn Wolf King let out a furious roar toward the sky. In the next instant, it entered a berserk state. It immediately unleashed its single-target burst skill, Rending Claw. Seeing this, Lin Yi's eyes grew cold. In the blink of an eye, strange light flooded the heavens, violent winds surged, and the surrounding air trembled. The Darkspawn Wolf King, known as the Nightmare of Beginners, collapsed instantly under plunder. A system notification followed. Congratulations, class user Lin Yi. You have slain the hidden dungeon boss, Darkspawn Wolf King. Gained 1000 EXP. Level increased to 5. At the same time, Lin Yi also obtained a lesser bronze chest. Moreover, since class user Lin Yi had completed all hidden objectives, slain the hidden boss Darkspawn Wolf King, and defeated over 30 wild wolves without using any damage skills, the dungeon received a final 3S rating, granting him an additional greater silver chest as a special reward. Only then did Lin Yi finally breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the reversed heal skill was not classified as a damage skill by the system, or he might not have achieved the 3S rating. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, everyone stood frozen in shock. A 3S dungeon rating. Someone had actually achieved it. Speculation immediately spread about which hidden expert had done it. Elsewhere, Su Mumu covered her mouth in disbelief. After all, even achieving an A rank had pushed her team to the brink. Even the usually composed principal could not contain his excitement. This was an accomplishment never before seen since the Academy's founding. Standing beside him, one of the designers of the Wolf Forest dungeon knew exactly how brutal the requirements for a 3S rating were. Solo clear, no damage taken, and killing the hidden boss, Darkspawn Wolf King. It was nothing short of monstrous. Meanwhile, Lin Yi was still immersed in the joy of opening his rewards. He first opened the Greater Silver Chest and obtained a Silver Tier skill book, Divine Aura Therapy, 5 free attribute points, and a Silver Tier weapon, Shadow Dagger. Divine Aura Therapy, an active skill that heals allies within a 10-meter radius for 100 HP, granting a regeneration effect for 10 seconds, restoring 20 HP per second. Under Heaven-Earth Reversal, Divine Aura Therapy transformed into Calamity Descends, dealing 100 HP damage to all enemy targets within range and applying a bleeding effect. The numbers alone might seem ordinary, but when combined with the reverse clarity, it became a devastating area of effect damage skill. Since priests were not melee fighters, and Su Mumu had chosen the mage class, also a caster, the Silver Tier Shadow Dagger could only be listed on the marketplace for sale. By comparison, the 5 free attribute points were the real treasure. Free attribute points were extremely rare, obtainable only through leveling, specific quests, or hidden chest rewards. Lin Yi invested all of them into intelligence without hesitation. From that point on, among peers of the same level, he could overwhelmingly surpass other damage dealers. From today forward, Lin Yi chose a single path, the ultimate spellcaster, the most brutal Calamity Priest. At this point, only the class user who had achieved a 3S rating remained inside the dungeon. The moment Lin Yi stepped out of the teleportation gate, the expressions on everyone's faces shifted instantly from surprise to shock. Wasn't the dungeon supposed to contain only that top-tier expert? Why was Lin Yi, the so-called useless priest, coming out now? Had he somehow latched onto a powerful teammate by sheer luck? Su Mumu hurried over with a bright smile and asked directly, Lin Yi, be honest, was the one who achieved the 3S rating actually you? The moment she finished speaking, several people nearby burst into laughter. Someone mocked him, saying that Lin Yi was just a priest, and surviving the dungeon was already impressive enough. The real expert was probably still inside, settling rewards, and Lin Yi had merely benefited by coincidence. Lin Yi did not bother to argue. Instead, he took out a dagger shimmering with silver light and calmly asked, "Is there anyone here who awakened as an assassin? How about a decent dagger for sale? Cheap." Instantly, several people stared at the weapon with greedy eyes and began shouting out bids. They had all recognized it as a silver-tier weapon. In the end, the shadow dagger was sold to an assassin for 100,000 alliance coins. For an average household, even saving without spending for an entire year might not amount to 100,000 alliance coins. However, the shadow dagger was a top-tier piece among silver equipment, fully worthy of its price. Soon after, some classmates who were on relatively good terms with Lin Yi finally realized that the hidden expert who earned the 3S rating was, in fact, Lin Yi himself. Meanwhile, up in the stands, the principal still struggled to accept what he had witnessed. Even those standing at the very top of the pyramid had never achieved such results during their beginner phase, let alone someone from the priest class. The principal then announced that the assessment had officially concluded. From this day forward, they were no longer ordinary students, but apprentice class users with extraordinary abilities. 1 month later, they would face the most important professional test of their lives. Whether they would remain ordinary individuals or become human heroes who fought against otherworldly creatures would depend entirely on their performance. During this month, they were required to make full use of the Academy's low-tier dungeons and reach level 10 or higher. Most importantly, the professional test had to be completed in teams, evaluating not only individual strength, but also teamwork and coordination. Lin Yi had already made up his mind. His partner would naturally be Su Mumu. Despite her usually cold demeanor, she was actually kind-hearted and easily deceived. By teaming up with her, Lin Yi could better ensure her safety. After all, without the help of her parents back then, Lin Yi might not have survived the catastrophe 8 years ago. On the following day, Lin Yi brought Su Mumu to the Academy's pre-match training dungeon. The Stone Cavern dungeon was divided into 2 difficulty levels. On normal difficulty, clearing it required only the defeat of the boss, Poison Scorpion King. On hard difficulty, however, players had to defeat the boss while avoiding poison throughout the fight, during which the Scorpion King would also enter a berserk state. Lin Yi's choice was naturally the hard difficulty. After all, higher difficulty meant greater rewards. Upon hearing his plan, Su Mumu felt visibly uncertain, worried that she might slow him down inside the dungeon. Lin Yi turned to reassure her, explaining that although the hard version of the Stone Cavern dungeon looked intimidating, he had a little-known skip strategy. Over the years, he had studied dungeon mechanics in detail, and since monster placement and terrain in this dungeon were fixed, the skip strategy was entirely viable. He then led Su Mumu into the Stone Cavern dungeon. Inside, crystals of all shapes and sizes littered the cavern. Lin Yi quietly warned her to stay alert. This was a real field dungeon, completely different from the difficult-to-reduce beginner dungeon they had faced before. At that moment, a system prompt appeared. Current party size is below the minimum requirement of 5. Additional teammates will be randomly assigned. Lin Yi had not expected the dungeon to feature force party merging. This meant heightened vigilance was required, not only against monsters, but also against the 3 temporary teammates. As expected, they soon encountered the 3 forcibly added teammates at an intersection. Lin Yi did not linger and immediately led Su Mumu in another direction. Before long, a massive group of scorpion monsters appeared ahead. Lin Yi swiftly cast Plunder. In an instant, the scorpions blocking their path were wiped out. Soon after, they reached the end of the route. The skip strategy for the Stone Cavern dungeon was simple. Follow a specific path to avoid most monsters' line of sight. The key was the pool of water ahead. Although scorpion monsters feared water, this pool was a hidden passage directly connected to the Poison Scorpion King's spawn point, making exposure to poison almost non-existent. The 2 jumped into the pool. Shortly afterward, they emerged on the opposite side of the cavern. Lin Yi picked up a stone and slammed it against the ground. In the next moment, a horrifying scorpion monster appeared in front of them. Behind it trailed a dense swarm of scorpions, but due to their fear of water, they were unable to cross and attack. A cold glint flashed in Lin Ye's eyes. He immediately unleashed the area of effect Skill Calamity Descends. At the same time, Su Mumu activated Ice Condensation. Under the combined firepower, the scorpion monsters stood no chance. Before long, every venomous scorpion in the cavern was completely wiped out. The remaining 3 teammates were left utterly stunned. They never imagined that the scorpions they struggled to deal with could be handled so effortlessly by Lin Yi. More importantly, if not for Lin Yi's earlier maneuver of luring the monsters by striking the ground, the scorpions from their side would never have retreated to the poisoned Scorpion King's area. In other words, without being forcibly matched into the same party, the 3 of them would not even have had the chance to face the boss. At this point, only the boss, Poisoned Scorpion King, remained. As a king-tier entity, it was now able to fully resist its instinctive fear of water. Even Su Mumu's strongest attack only managed to shave off 10 HP. Lin Yi signaled for her not to worry and explained that the Scorpion King's true weakness lay in the core of its second abdominal segment. He then instructed Su Mumu to remain in position and focus on the boss's abdomen, while he would create openings to force it to expose its weak point. In the next instant, Lin Yi leapt into the air and activated Plunder once more. Sensing danger, the poisoned Scorpion King hastily raised its pincers to block. Seizing the opportunity, Su Mumu unleashed Ice Condensation directly at the exposed core of its abdomen. At the same time, Lin Yi's Plunder struck true, dealing a devastating 1,000 damage in a single blow. Before long, the poisoned Scorpion King collapsed under their flawless coordination. A system notification followed. Congratulations. All hidden objectives have been completed. The Secret Realm Overlord, Poisoned Scorpion King, has been defeated. As no party member was poisoned, the dungeon rating has been upgraded to 3S. Rewards granted: gold chest ×1, free attribute points ×5. Meanwhile, Lin Yi successfully advanced to level 6. Only then did the 3 teammates finally realize they had truly been carried today. To avoid unnecessary trouble later, Lin Yi coldly warned them that everything they had witnessed must remain strictly confidential. He then opened the gold chest on the spot. The first item to appear was a growth-type skill book, Poison Bubble. Next came a gold-tier equipment piece, Windstep Boots, along with 2 silver-tier items, the Hunting Greatsword and the Emerald Ring, as well as 5 free attribute points. Since Poison Bubble suited a mage far better, Lin Yi handed the skill book to Su Mumu. However, once a mage selects an elemental affinity, they can only learn skills of that element. Su Mumu had chosen Ice, making it theoretically impossible for her to learn a poison-type skill. Yet the moment she accepted the skill book, an invisible radiance enveloped her. In the next instant, a system notification appeared. Congratulations. Hidden Talent 5 Elements Master has been activated for class user Su Mumu. Current progress, February 5th. Lin Yi was momentarily stunned. He had not expected Su Mumu to be a chosen one as well. After the reward settlement concluded, Lin Yi led Su Mumu out through the dungeon's teleportation gate. By then, many class users had gathered outside, all preparing for the professional examination scheduled a month later. At that moment, a flashy sports car suddenly rolled into the crowd. 2 extravagantly dressed, rich heirs stepped out of the vehicle. Seeing them, Su Mumu instinctively grabbed Lin Yi's hand, intending to leave. She had always despised such people, those who relied on their family backgrounds to monopolize dungeons, seize resources, and bully the underprivileged. Unfortunately, her striking appearance quickly caught one of their attention. With a self-satisfied smile, he introduced himself. "Hello, I'm Huang Xiaofeng, the sole heir of the Huang Group. Would you care to join me for dinner?" Hearing this, Su Mumu immediately pushed Lin Yi forward and stated that she already had a boyfriend. Lin Yi glanced at her helplessly. She was clearly using him as a shield again. In the instant Lin Yi turned around, he effortlessly neutralized Huang Xiaofeng's sneaky attempt at an ambush. Enraged, Huang Xiaofeng charged forward with a heavy punch, his warrior skill, charge. Lin Yi remained calm and triggered reversed plunder the moment the attack reached him. With a muffled thud, the punch rebounded as if reflected, the force slamming straight back into Huang Xiaofeng. Huang Xiaofeng collapsed to his knees on the spot, his face twisted in fury and confusion. Lin Yi had clearly not struck him, yet a terrifying force had crushed his abdomen in an instant. Refusing to accept it, Huang Xiaofeng gathered his strength and threw another punch. The result was the same. He cried out in pain and dropped to his knees once more. Lin Yi merely observed and thought. He had intended only to test how reversed skills affected other class users, but discovered that in addition to damage, they also inflicted debilitating effects. At that moment, a man in a suit stepped forward and said calmly, "What happened today was indeed Huang Xiaofeng's fault. On his behalf, I sincerely apologize to both of you." As he spoke, he lifted up Huang Xiaofeng, who had already fallen completely unconscious. Then he handed Lin Yi a bank card. "There are 50,000 alliance coins in this card. Consider it compensation. In return, I hope you'll do me a favor and avoid Huang Xiaofeng for a while to prevent unnecessary conflicts. I'll also arrange the most suitable trial dungeons for you, ensuring you keep pace with a professional examination." Lin Yi looked at him coldly. His voice was calm, yet sharp. "I can't promise to accept your conditions. What I want to know instead is how much trouble Huang Xiaofeng can actually cause me." After returning home, Lin Yi immediately posted a thread on the Academy forum. The content was straightforward, several images of equipment drops, along with a highly detailed 3S clear guide for the Stone Cavern dungeon. The dungeon itself was notoriously dark and complex, and the requirements for a 3S rating placed severe restrictions on team coordination, while also granting extra free attribute points as a reward. As a result, shortly after the guide went live, Alliance coins began pouring steadily into Lin Yi's bank account. Actual equipment drops were proof enough of its credibility. More importantly, several teams who purchased the guide soon managed to achieve 3S ratings in the Stone Cavern dungeon. In no time, the news exploded across online forums. Some class users even speculated that the creator of the guide had to be one of the few top-tier experts at the pinnacle of the hierarchy. Meanwhile, in a secluded location elsewhere, a mysterious man studied the dungeon guide in silence. He soon turned to his subordinates and ordered, "Find out who's behind this guide, no matter the cost." As for Lin Yi, he successfully earned 300,000 alliance coins through the guide alone. With a low price and solid content, others even volunteered to promote it for him. Still, Lin Yi's real concern lay in standing out during the upcoming professional examination. While silver-tier graduation weapons were strong early on, they were ultimately replaceable. Even the best equipment meant little without proper combat awareness. Whether in dungeons or PvP, one would still be at the mercy of others. Therefore, before the exam, Lin Yi needed to challenge as many dungeons as possible. Just then, a user named Muscle Bro #1 sent him a private message, expressing interest in the silver tier hunting greatsword and proposing to meet at the Academy's dungeon entrance. When Lin Yi arrived at the agreed location, he was surprised to find that this so-called Muscle Bro #1 was actually a sweet-looking young woman. Lin Yi hadn't expected such a petite girl to choose a greatsword-based swordsman class, nor had he expected her to invest all her attribute points into strength. He then retrieved the hunting greatsword from his spatial inventory and handed it to her. Check the stats carefully. Once sold, there are no refunds. The girl, named by Ji, took the greatsword and swung it a few times. Moments later, she exclaimed excitedly, "There's nothing wrong with it at all. I just can't believe a silver tier graduation greatsword is only 80,000 alliance coins. On the market, even the cheapest ones go for 200. Lin Yi said nothing more. He simply brought up the payment code and completed the transaction. Immediately, a system notification sounded. Ding. Congratulations, class user Lin Yi. Your account balance has exceeded 1 million alliance coins. You've been upgraded to a gold card user and unlocked exclusive privileges. Lin Yi waved casually in farewell, planning to head home for some much-needed rest. Suddenly, a beam of golden light descended from above and struck the back of his head. Lin Yi stared upward in disbelief as a system window appeared. Class user Lin Yi has been affected by an unknown force and gained the special buff gaze of the goddess of luck. Effect: each dungeon clear upgrades the obtained chest by 1 tier. Duration: 24 hours. He instinctively turned to look at Bai Ji, deeply shaken. This seemingly ordinary girl had awakened an extraordinarily powerful luck-type talent, one even rarer than some legendary talents. Bai Ji then asked softly, "For the professional examination in a month, could I team up with you?" After a brief moment of thought, Lin Yi agreed. After all, luck-based talents imposed no restriction on chest quality, meaning even a common tier talent, under this buff, could potentially yield legendary or even mythical tier chests. Bai Ji then added that her talent could also be upgraded, though it came with strict limitations, at most 3 uses per week, and each use could only be applied to a single person. Hearing this, Lin Yi immediately warned her to never reveal her talent. Ideally, she should keep it in a hidden state, just as he did. Such a luck-based talent was even rarer than a full set of legendary equipment. Once exposed, it would inevitably attract countless greedy eyes. Even the Class User Alliance, despite its generally positive reputation, was filled with factions and internal conflicts. In the current world, no one except oneself could truly be trusted. Afterward, Lin Yi brought Bai Ji to regroup with Su Mumu. During a brief team discussion, Lin Yi laid out their next plan. Their next target would be the Nightmare Tier Goblin Dungeon. To ensure everyone could obtain free attribute points, his original plan was to enter solo first, familiarize himself with the dungeon, refine a strategy, and then clear it together as a team. The moment he finished speaking, Su Mumu protested sharply. "Lin Yi, have you lost your mind?" Nightmare tier dungeons were the highest difficulty available during the beginner phase. While the rewards were incredibly tempting, gold tier chests as the baseline, the monsters inside were equally terrifying. Many reckless newcomers had already lost their lives there. Even with monster levels below 10, Nightmare dungeons had still left numerous class users severely injured. Sensing the tension, Bai Ji quickly found an excuse and slipped away. Lin Yi then softened his tone and explained to Su Mumu that he had only been joking. They would start by clearing hard-tier dungeons instead. As he said this, the gloom on Su Mumu's face finally eased. Yet, deep down, Lin Yi had already made up his mind to find a chance later that night and solo the dungeon in secret. At the same time, Lin Yi's strategy post began stirring massive attention across online platforms. Some speculated that the newcomer who achieved a 3S rating in the beginner assessment dungeon was the very same person who created the 3S Stone Cavern dungeon strategy. There were even eyewitnesses who released photos taken after running into Lin Yi at the dungeon entrance. The forum quickly split into 2 camps. One side claimed the so-called mysterious rookie was nothing more than a manufactured prodigy created by certain schools, insisting that no one could realistically earn a 3S rating in a beginner assessment. The opposing side consisted mostly of students from Jiangxing Vocational Academy, many of whom had personally witnessed Lin Yi break dungeon records on his awakening day. Meanwhile, at the center of the discussion, Lin Yi was calmly having dinner with Su Mumu and the others. As usual, Su's father asked about the challenges Lin Yi had encountered during his trials. He then handed Lin Yi a bank card, telling him that with the final exam approaching, the money was meant to cover his cultivation expenses. Lin Yi accepted the card without hesitation. Even though he already possessed over $1 million in savings, this card represented far more than money. It carried the unconditional love of his adoptive parents. That was precisely why Lin Yi was so desperate to grow stronger, to protect everyone in this world who had ever shown him kindness. Elsewhere, Huang Xiaofeng was furiously berating his friend Zhao Qihong, accusing him of ruining his reputation. He snarled that Lin Yi had openly declared he feared neither him nor the Huang Corporation behind him, and that this humiliation would be repaid. With that, he reached for his phone to call in reinforcements. In his heart, Huang Xiaofeng swore to make Lin Yi understand that this world ultimately ran on strength. Watching from the side, the suited Zhao Qihong could only think that Huang Xiaofeng had completely lost his mind. After all, Zhao Qihong had seen it himself. Lin Yi had defeated Huang Xiaofeng using nothing but physical power. Even without a powerful backing, Lin Yi was destined to become a name others would fear. Late at night, Lin Yi slipped away without informing Su Mumu and arrived alone at the Goblin Dungeon. He selected Nightmare difficulty, where all monsters received comprehensive stat boosts. If the final floor was not cleared, no dungeon rewards would be triggered. This was precisely why even talented awakened professionals avoided Nightmare runs. The rewards were tempting, but failure meant gaining nothing at all. Lin Yi had another reason for insisting on this challenge. Earlier that day, Baiji had applied a luck-based buff to him. If he completed the dungeon successfully, there was a high chance of obtaining a platinum tier or higher chest, along with a guaranteed 10 free attribute points. The final enemy of the first floor was the Goblin Soldier. These monsters were large in size, but relatively slow in movement. They were perfect targets for testing Lin Yi's newly devised speed clear strategy. During the 5 seconds before the dungeon timer officially started, Lin Yi stood at the entrance and gathered all the goblin soldiers into a single cluster. This was not done to increase difficulty, but to pursue a SSS clearance rating for the Nightmare Goblin Dungeon. To achieve it, aside from defeating the final dungeon boss, 2 additional conditions had to be met. First, all monsters must be killed without using any special items, and each floor had to be cleared within 10 minutes. Second, on the 5th floor, the dungeon boss, the Goblin King, had to be defeated head-on while enduring continuous goblin attacks. Such requirements were brutally demanding for beginner professionals. As a result, the only viable approach was to gather all enemies in advance and eliminate them in one decisive sweep. Empowered by his talent skills, Lin Yi cleared the first floor in just 3 minutes and 59 seconds. The results confirmed that the pull-in clear method was effective. Even if damage output fell short, nearly 5 minutes of error tolerance remained. After that, Lin Yi repeated the same process, maintaining the same rhythm. He cleared all monsters on the first 4 floors within the 10-minute limit. Lin Yi soon arrived at the teleport gate on the 5th floor. What surprised him slightly was that, this time, the battle began immediately with a boss encounter, something that had never happened in previous runs. The moment Lin Yi appeared, the Goblin King roared in rage and swung the spear in its hands. It then leapt forward, crashing straight toward Lin Yi's position. Based on prior combat experience, the safest response would have been to dodge sideways and immediately drop to the ground, avoiding the secondary shockwave upon landing. However, Lin Yi instead hoped the Goblin King would attack with full force. Once he activated his talent and reversed the landing skill, his health began to rise continuously. Combined with the reversed healing spell, now functioning as plunder, the Goblin King's HP bar started to drop at a rapid, visible rate. The damage came not only from Lin Yi's skills, but also from the backlash caused by the boss's own reversed abilities. With an enraged howl, the Goblin King unleashed a skill called Dragon Spear. Watching the motion, Lin Yi's lips curved into a confident smile. Skill reversal. Dragon Spear now restored 200 HP and granted plus 40 attack power during its duration. At this point, the Goblin King finally realized something was wrong. All of its skills were completely ineffective against this human that a king-tier monster. It quickly deduced the underlying spell logic. Raising its scepter, it chanted an incantation, and countless goblin warriors burst out from beneath the ground. Its eyes flared with crimson fury as it entered a full berserk state, issuing an order to its troops: do not use any skills. Only basic attacks. Beat this human to death. Facing the swarm of goblin warriors charging toward him, Lin Yi remained calm. He shifted his body, avoiding the first wave of frontal charge damage. Though arrows from goblin archers continued to strike him from behind, these attacks posed no real threat. After all, Lin Yi was still a priest. This scene instantly unsettled the Goblin King. It could not comprehend how this cursed human still had ways to heal himself. What Lin Yi did next shattered its understanding even further, as he gripped his staff with both hands as streams of dark red energy slowly poured out. The skill Divine Aura Therapy transformed through his talent into the devastating area skill Calamity Descent. In an instant, all the goblin warriors were bound in place by waves of crimson energy. Lin Yi then snapped his hands forward, detonating the energy condensed within their bodies. With a thunderous roar, a violent torrent of power tore open the sky itself. The energy engulfed the entire goblin citadel in a single sweep. Every goblin caught within the blast was pierced clean through, unable even to scream. Even the Goblin King, the last one standing, was left on the brink of death. At that moment, it questioned its very existence. How could the strongest of the goblin race be slain so helplessly by a human? As Lin Yi's palm descended, the Goblin King let out a final agonized wail before dying. A faint smile appeared on Lin Yi's face. The luck buff was proving far more powerful than expected. Ding! System notification. Lin Yi had successfully cleared the Nightmare Tier Goblin Dungeon, and by completing all hidden conditions, the rating was upgraded to SSS, granting a Platinum Tier treasure chest. Lin Yi then opened the Platinum Grade treasure chest. As a brilliant golden light flashed, several skill books and equipment rewards appeared. Platinum Skill Book, Holy Light. Attacks enemies with sacred light, dealing magic damage imbued with holy effects. Highly effective against undead and demon-type enemies. Gold grade item, Flame Fox. When thrown, deals 300 damage to the target. Platinum equipment, Blink Stone. Grants plus 20 to all attributes and unlocks the active skill Blink. The skill regenerates 1 charge every 5 minutes, storing up to 3 charges. Consuming 1 charge allows the user to blink 10 meters in a chosen direction. Platinum Skill Book Radiance of the Star Gods consumes mana to summon Divine Starlight, healing all allies within a 20-meter radius for 300 HP and granting 10% damage reduction for 5 seconds. Gold Equipment Sandstorm Bow. Attacks deal additional Earth Element magic damage, with a chance to trigger a Sandstorm Strike. Among all the rewards, the one Lin Yi valued most was the Platinum Skill Book Radiance of the Star Gods. Under the effect of Heaven-Earth Reversal, the skill would be completely inverted, turning into a powerful area damage ability that could even reduce enemy damage resistance. With this, even the toughest enemies could be eliminated instantly, and the skill would remain effective against large groups as well. Having made his decision, Lin Yi immediately learned Radiance of the Star Gods at AS for Holy Light. It was relatively underwhelming and could be sold on the marketplace. All newly acquired free attribute points were invested into intelligence. The scene shifted, and Lin Yi had already returned to his room. While listing excess equipment for sale, Lin Yi casually posted an S-rank Nightmare Tier Goblin Dungeon Clear Guide. The moment the post went live, it exploded across the forum, and this time, far more people chose to believe its contents. One comment, however, caught Lin Yi's attention. A user named Paparazzi Tailend claimed the poster was actually Lin Yi from Jiangxing Vocational Academy. The same person rumored to be the strongest test candidate and the one who had solo cleared beginner dungeons with an SSS rating. The user even attached photos of Lin Yi exiting the dungeon after clearing it. Even so, most replies beneath the comment remained skeptical. Some classmates questioned outright, wasn't Lin Yi a priest? How could a priest possibly solo a dungeon? The data in the guide was extremely precise, and as a student, Lin Yi shouldn't have that level of experience or ability. Lin Yi glanced at the comments with indifference. Their doubts had nothing to do with him. This post earned him roughly 500,000 Alliance credits. The income was nearly half of his previous guide, likely because it didn't include a flawless, no-damage strategy against the Goblin King. And aside from Lin Yi himself, almost no one could realistically replicate such a run. At the moment, the Luck Goddess's Gaze buff still had about 15 hours remaining. Lin Yi decided to loosen up a bit and run several more dungeons to farm gear and earn money. He headed to the lakeside for a light jog. Just then, a sports car slowly pulled up in front of him. Huang Xiaofeng. Huang sneered, "Fight me in a man-to-man duel, or I might just pay your family a visit. I know where you live." Lin Yi's expression darkened. Since the other party insisted, there was no reason to avoid it anymore. "If you want a duel, I'll oblige," Lin Yi replied calmly. "Just don't pass out on the ground like last time." Soon after, Lin Yi followed Huang Xiaofeng into a secluded forest. Huang chuckled and dropped the act completely. "Yeah, duel. Just us, except it's all of us versus you." Lin Yi curled his lips into a mocking smile. "You don't need to explain. It makes no difference to me." As the words fell, Lin Yi slowly raised his staff. In the next instant, the group lunged toward him like feral dogs. Lin Yi tapped the ground lightly and slipped past the first wave with ease. At that moment, a warrior behind him unleashed a skill, Charge Slash. Sensing the danger from behind, Lin Yi immediately activated his talent, Heaven-Earth Reversal. In the next second, the warrior felt as if an invisible force had slammed directly into his body. Panic flooded his face as cold sweat poured down. The opponent hadn't even attacked, just moved his lips slightly, yet his gold-grade armor was already shattered. Seeing Lin Yi still standing motionless, the others steadied themselves and charged in together. The moment they fully closed in, Lin Yi released the reversed form of Radiance of the Star Gods, Abyss Fall. Instantly, the entire space twisted under a surge of dark power. Vision went black. A crushing sense of freefall dragged everyone downward, as if seized by an invisible giant hand. After dealing with the lesser foes, Huang Xiaofeng finally stepped forward, sword in hand. "This is a diamond-tier equipment set, worth tens of millions," he sneered. "Once activated, it grants plus 100 to all attributes that I bought it at the Sotheby's auction, the most prestigious auction house in Huaxia. Lin Yi, this time, you're kneeling before me, so you might as well surrender now." Lin Yi shook his head calmly. "Haven't you heard? A dog is still a dog, no matter how fancy its clothes are, and you'll never defeat me." With that, Huang Xiaofeng charged forward. Lin Yi leapt upward and triggered the blink effect of the blink stone, instantly widening the distance. Huang Xiaofeng stared in disbelief. Had Lin Yi put all his points into agility? After all, Huang was wearing a full diamond-tier set. But he quickly reassured himself, speed alone meant weak defenses. One hit would be enough. Lin Yi chuckled softly. "Diamond gear, huh? Interesting." He raised his hand and cast Plunder Ding. System notification. Huang Xiaofeng's chest armor is damaged. Diamond set bonus deactivated. Cold sweat instantly covered Huang Xiaofeng's forehead. The situation was completely out of control. If he didn't reveal his true strength now, there would be no way out. Gritting his teeth, he gripped his sword and unleashed Meteor Stallion Burst. With a thunderous crash, an overwhelming shockwave slammed into Lin Yi's position. Seeing this, Huang Xiaofeng relaxed slightly and sneered, "What's wrong? Why aren't you acting tough anymore?" Before he could finish speaking, his body twisted violently in a grotesque manner. Lin Yi stepped forward calmly, emerging from the fading energy waves. "I wasn't planning to deal with you," Lin Yi said evenly, "but the moment you threatened my family, you crossed my line." He raised his hand and cast Heal, instantly restoring Huang Xiaofeng's HP to full. Immediately after, Lin Yi activated Plunder, reversed by his talent. Huang Xiaofeng plunged into endless agony. Each time he neared death, his HP was forcibly restored to full, only for the torment to begin again. The others watching shuddered in fear, silently grateful they hadn't used Lin Yi's family as leverage. What they had forgotten was this. They had originally planned to live-stream Lin Yi being beaten senseless. A hidden camera was already set up in the forest. The broadcast was live. Viewer numbers skyrocketed at an alarming rate. Soon, people in the chat pointed out that Lin Yi closely resembled a student from Jiangcheng Vocational Academy. The same person rumored to have solo-cleared dungeons and authored SSS rank clear guides. Although Lin Yi was supposedly a priest, the livestream clearly showed a terrifyingly powerful talent. As more viewers joined, additional clues surfaced. IP checks confirmed that the forum post had originated from Jiangsheng, and given that the guides focused on early-stage dungeons, it made even more sense that the creator was a student. Meanwhile, fans rapidly organized online support groups. Huang Xiaofeng's vicious behavior became the target of massive public condemnation. As a result, the market value of the Huang Group's shares began to plummet. Meanwhile, at a high-level meeting of the professional association, a special decision was made to recruit Lin Yi directly into the organization. At this moment, however, Lin Yi was still focused on punishing Huang Xiaofeng, unaware of what was happening outside. Suddenly, a young man hurried over, stating that the chairman of the Huang Group wished to speak with Lin Yi. Hearing this, Huang Xiaofeng straightened his back, convinced his father had come to support him. Lin Yi looked at the young man coldly. "Is the Huang Group trying to pressure me? If so, have him come in person." The young man immediately bowed deeply. "You misunderstand. The Huang family is willing to compensate, and the chairman will personally apologize." Huang Xiaofeng's eyes widened in disbelief. Moments later, a remote projection appeared. Huang's father bowed deeply and offered a sincere apology. He stated that anything within his means could be offered as compensation. Seeing this attitude, Lin Yi did not hold back. He requested 3 diamond-tier unrestricted equipment sets, priest, mage, and swordsman, plus 5 million alliance credits. The young man behind him was stunned. 3 unrestricted diamond sets were almost impossible to obtain nationwide. Huang's father admitted there was no immediate supply and asked for a few days. As additional compensation, over 50 dungeons in Jiangsheng would be open to Lin Yi free of charge. Lin Yi thought to himself that Huang Xiaofeng had unintentionally helped him. 2.5 days later, Lin Yi and Su Mumu arrived at the 5-star restaurant Yuzhelin. It was Jiangsheng's first officially designated 5-star restaurant. They were there at Huang's father's invitation. Su Mumu had worried it might be a trap, but Lin Yi reassured her. After the livestream incident, the association had already taken notice of him. During dinner, Huang's father confirmed that all 3 diamond sets had been secured. Even Su Mumu was shocked by how much effort the Huang family had invested. A nightmare tier pass for the Land of Bones was also included. Meanwhile, Huang Xiaofeng lay in intensive care. A shadow slowly emerged before him. The figure claimed to be Mago, a high-ranking demon from the abyss. Huang Xiaofeng snorted in disdain. Merely a lowly worm chased back into the abyss by human. Hearing this, Mago sneered at a city-wide joke beaten down by a priest. "What exactly are you proud of? That was a strategic retreat, understand?" He chuckled. "There's no need for hostility. In a way, we're both pitiful. Your friends and family didn't help you. They bowed to someone else instead. As for me, after being driven back to the abyss by humans, I've lived without a home. Why not make a deal? Your body in exchange for my power?" Huang Xiaofeng stood up abruptly. "I'm a genius among geniuses. I don't need anyone's pity." Seeing he couldn't sway him, Mago turned back into a shadow. Before leaving, he said, "Whenever you change your mind, call my name. Mago. I will answer at once and grant you abyssal power. I will guide you to become a fearless malefactor." Scene shift. Lin Yi led Su Mumu and the others into the Land of Bones, Nightmare difficulty dungeon. Baiji still had 1 use left of her lucky buff this week, and Lin Yi decided to save it for a better dungeon later. Although the Land of Bones was a resource-type dungeon, they already had a full set of diamond tier gear, so platinum tier drops wouldn't boost them much right now. But they were still missing a platinum tier or higher weapon, so this run could focus on the essentials. First, free attribute points. Second, pulling a platinum tier item. Third, producing an SSS Nightmare Land of Bones guide. Before entering, Lin Yi told Su Mumu and the others to watch from the side as a live demonstration. To get an SSS clear rating in the Land of Bones, conditions had to be met. First, kill the final boss, the Undead Knight. Second, wipe out every undead skeleton in the dungeon. Third, do not use the dungeon-exclusive weapon meant to suppress the undead, the Holy Sword. Fourth, before clearing, keep the protected holy sword above 60% HP. So the moment they entered, Lin Yi bit his finger and let a drop of blood fall onto the ground. The instant it touched the floor, countless undead skeletons crawled out from the cracks. Just as Lin Yi expected, their thirst for blood outweighed their hatred of holy light. To draw them all out, Lin Yi had already spent nearly 75% of his HP. Bai Ji looked worried. Do we really not need help? Su Mumu stayed calm. Lin Yi doesn't act recklessly. He wouldn't do this without full confidence. Moments later, Lin Yi led all the undead skeletons to the edge of the dungeon. Once they had fully gathered, Lin Yi cast miraculous therapy to restore his HP, stunning the monsters. By the time they reacted, it was too late. As the final spell was spoken, a suffocating aura surged from the fissure and flooded the battlefield. Then countless black flames fell like meteors, striking the horde with precision. In the blink of an eye, only a field of bones remained. At that moment, heavy, rhythmic footsteps echoed from deep within the cavern. A towering figure stepped out from the entrance. This was the nightmare boss, the Undead Knight. The moment the Undead Knight revealed itself, it opened its massive jaws and spewed resentful flames straight toward Lin Yi. As the skill activated and skeletal figures condensed from blazing fire in an instant. Lin Yi remained calm and immediately cast the Reverse Devour while standing his ground. Crimson beams surged forward like lightning, dispersing the resentful flames wherever they passed, and the Undead Knight's HP was cut in half in an instant. Confusion appeared on its face. It had clearly underestimated its opponent. Lin Yi chuckled lightly. Judging by your entrance, I thought you were something impressive. Turns out you're just for show. He then raised his hand and activated the AoE skill Calamity Descent, and with the powerful boost of his Diamond Tier 4 piece set, its damage increased by 50% as thunder flashed across the sky and struck straight down at the Undead Knight. When the smoke from the explosion cleared, the Undead Knight's body was already shattered, though it remained alive in a severely wounded state, because in the next moment, it triggered its passive skill, Undead Fury. Its grotesque face slowly began to writhe. As it spoke, the ground itself started to tremble unnaturally. Immediately after, countless undead skeletons crawled out from the abyss. Ding! System notification. All undead entities revived, restoring 100 HP per second. Seeing Lin Yi unmoving, the Undead Knight charged toward him and roared, "Foolish human, you've reached the end. Do you have any last words?" Lin Yi merely smiled calmly. You really think you matter? Even with a few extra lives, it wouldn't change anything. Seeing Lin Yi remain still, Bai Ji grew anxious and asked softly whether they should help. But Su Mumu stayed confident, knowing that with enemies healing only 100 HP per second, Lin Yi didn't need the Holy Sword. Raw damage alone would end it quickly. Facing the charge of multiple undead, Lin Yi released Calamity Descent once more, instantly annihilating the newly revived skeletons before their regeneration could even take effect. The Undead Knight finally panicked completely. Lin Yi locked onto its figure. Now it's your turn, and with the Diamond Tier set bonus, Devour's damage has risen to 150%. As the skill struck, the Undead Knight was reduced to ash in an instant, leaving nothing behind. Ding! Nightmare Land of Bones dungeon cleared. All hidden conditions fulfilled. The final rating reached SSS, granting 1 gold chest and 1 platinum chest. After defeating the Undead Knight, Lin Yi's level jumped directly to level 8. At the same time, the system detected that Su Mumu and the others had produced no valid combat data, judging their actions as AFK behavior and denying them EXP rewards. At that moment, a key slowly materialized in midair. Final dungeon task completed. Protect the Holy Sword barrier with 0 undead attacks received. Unique clear reward obtained. Stone Sword Key, whose sole effect allows access to a one-time dungeon, the Land of Death, with difficulty reaching as high as Cataclysm tier. After reading the description, Bai Ji widened her eyes in shock. and even Su Mumu looked stunned. This was her first time hearing of a one-time dungeon key, let alone one of Cataclysm tier. Lin Yi, however, was familiar with it. One-time dungeon items differ from normal dungeon keys. Once used, both the key and the dungeon vanish, along with all associated rewards, which is why they are considered extremely valuable strategic resources. Generally, new players can only access normal, hard, and nightmare dungeons. Although higher tiers such as Disaster, Catastrophe, Cataclysm, and Epic exist, those top-tier dungeons or rare one-time instances are tightly controlled by major factions. Baiji looked at him with admiration. So one-time dungeon rewards are even better than regular ones. Su Mumu recalled related rumors. One-time dungeon rewards are often several times stronger than normal ones, and always drop a unique, world-exclusive reward for the challenger. That made Lin Yi pause. Had no one before him ever achieved an SSS rating in Land of Bones while keeping the barrier at full HP? Before he could think further, Su Mumu and Bai Ji urged him to start opening the chests. The rewards from a nightmare dungeon would surely be exceptional. Moments later, Lin Yi opened both chests. The gold chest yielded the gold tier skills Mass Slaughter and Azure Iron Fist. The platinum chest granted 10 free attribute points, along with the platinum tier equipment Hound's Fong and Meteor Staff. Lin Yi felt a bit helpless. None of the rewards suited a priest, though the Meteor Staff was clearly perfect for Su Mumu. He handed the staff to her. This staff matches well with the earth element of your 5 elements master talent. After teleporting out of the dungeon, Lin Yi asked whether they felt confident attempting a solo clear. Following his method, an S-rank clear should be well within reach. Baiji could hardly contain herself and immediately nodded, saying she had no problem at all. Just as the words fell, a black shadow flashed past. Caught off guard, Lin Yi could only grab Su Mumu, the closest to him, and pull her aside. Baiji, however, was seized by a bald brute, a short blade pressed against her neck as he sneered viciously. So you're the ones who took the stone sword key. Lin Yi sized them up. A level 15 mage, a level 13 assassin, 2 level 12 martial artists, and a level 11 priest. He had no choice but to stay cautious. He was only level 8, and Su Mumu was merely a level 6 mage. The bald man chuckled darkly. Hand over the stone, sword key like a good boy, or I might just let my hand slip, and Baiji struggled desperately in his grip. In the next instant, she summoned a great sword and slashed fiercely at the bandit's abdomen. Seeing this, the mage immediately cast Fireball. Baiji sensed the danger and raised her great sword to block. But the massive level gap proved fatal, and she was blasted unconscious on the spot. Lin Ye's gaze turned icy as he swept his eyes over them. If you don't want to die, get lost. Now, the mage ignored him, calmly forming a ball of flame in his palm and aiming it at Baiji on the ground. At that moment, terrifying blood-red beams erupted behind him. The mage reacted instantly, sidestepping the attack with practiced reflexes. Even so, cold sweat beaded across his forehead. His teammates behind him were far less fortunate. Even outside the main blast zone, their bodies trembled violently. Taking advantage of the smoke, Baiji hurried back to Lin Ye's side. Lin Ye raised his staff and walked forward slowly, his voice calm and cold. The stone sword key is on me. If you want it, come take it. The mage burst into laughter. An insignificant level, 8 priest acting tough? I could crush you with a single finger. As he spoke, he raised his left hand to cast a buff on the bald man, while his right continued to gather flames. In the next second, the bald brute activated his charge skill, Death Flare, lunging toward them like a ferocious shadow. Lin Yi remained calm and signaled Su Mumu and the others to fall back. From the moment the group appeared, he had sensed something was wrong. There was a trace of demonic tide energy clinging to them. That meant only one thing. They were fallen corruptors. People who willingly traded with demons, abandoning their original talents in exchange for abyssal power far beyond their limits. Corroded by that power, they gradually lost their humanity and became traitors to mankind. Faced with such traitors, Lin Yi showed no mercy. He released his full strength without restraint, multiple skills unfolding at once and engulfing the two warriors closest to him along with the bald man. A deafening explosion followed. The mage wore a smug grin. An 8-level nobody daring to act so arrogantly. Today was going to be a huge profit. But as the smoke cleared, the bald man's body slowly emerged, lifeless. His bones were shattered almost entirely, while Lin Yi stood unharmed, his gaze cold and piercing. The priest and the mage both froze in shock. This was nothing like what they had expected. The mage immediately ordered the priest to heal them, but the priest shook his head in panic. I've been channeling healing spells since the fight began. If they're not responding now, it means they were killed instantly. The mage's pupil shrank as icy fear crept up his spine. An 8-level priest with this kind of damage? Did he also make a deal with the abyss? Even then, a priest shouldn't be this terrifying. Realizing the situation was beyond saving, the mage turned and fled at full speed with only one thought in mind: run as far as possible. Seeing him attempt to escape, Lin Yi casually threw the bald man's corpse aside and activated his skill, Fallen Hell. When the skill ended, only 2 mangled corpses remained on the ground. Although there was a clear level gap between Lin Yi and his opponents, with the boost from a diamond tier set, their HP could still be wiped out instantly as long as they had no additional defensive measures. Witnessing the scene, Su Mumu trembled slightly, yet she understood clearly. If they had hesitated, the ones dying would have been them. Bai Ji asked anxiously whether they should dispose of the bodies, in case an organization or guild came looking for revenge. Lin Yi then explained the nature of the fallen corruptors. Such scum would never be acknowledged by any organization or faction in public. In the shadows, they operated independently and rarely supported one another, usually forming only temporary groups like this. After carefully searching their equipment, Lin Yi felt a trace of regret. Most of it was a mix of platinum and gold tier gear. Almost all of it carried restrictions exclusive to fallen corruptors, making it unusable and unsellable for normal adventurers. Still, there was one meaningful gain: a Calamity tier pass for Giant Fall Forest. Giant Fall Forest was a level 10 dungeon. Its nightmare difficulty had once been used as a professional assessment, yet no team had ever cleared it over the years. The second boss, Dark Curse Knight, was notoriously powerful, with countless candidates falling to it. Elite adventurers therefore prefer to challenge the Calamity tier version in coordinated teams. Their goal was not top-tier gear or experience, but the no-damage clear and first clear reward, the Cataclysm tier dungeon key to Forgotten Nest. The two immediately grew excited and suggested forming a team to challenge the dungeon. Lin Yi agreed at once, saying they would depart as soon as Bai Ji's talent cooldown ended. Not only would they aim to reach level 10 inside the dungeon, but they would also compete for the Forgotten Nest access key. For now, however, they still had to deal with the bodies, which posed a minor problem. Su Mumu sighed in frustration, remarking that a summoner could have simply fed the corpses to their summoned beasts. The comment sounded absurd, yet it sparked an idea for Lin Yi. After a brief thought, he carried the bodies and threw them into the dungeon, letting them vanish when the instance reset. After settling everything, Lin Yi briefly checked the cooldown of Bai Ji's talent. With plenty of time remaining, he decided to return to the academy to regroup before challenging Giant Fall Forest once her cooldown ended. 2.5 days passed quickly. During this time, Lin Yi earned a considerable amount of alliance coins by selling strategy guides, so he invited Su Mumu and Bai Ji out for a meal as a pre-exam morale boost. While he was speaking, a waiter suddenly approached and informed them that their bill had already been paid by a gentleman nearby. Lin Yi turned his head in confusion and saw a well-mannered young man nodding politely in acknowledgement. The man stood up and introduced himself as Shangwan Yin, an officer of the Adventurer Alliance and the sect master of Lingyun's sect. Lin Yi rose to shake his hand, introducing himself and his teammates, Su Mumu and Bai Ji. Shangwan Yin smiled calmly, saying he had already gathered this information and explained that he wished to invite Lin Yi to join Ling Yun's sect and enter the alliance system in advance. The three of them were visibly stunned by the proposal. Lin Yi replied that he had not yet taken the official professional assessment, and joining the alliance without publicly proving his strength would inevitably raise doubts. After some thought, he politely declined, stating that he had no intention of joining any sect for the time being. Shang Guanyin appeared surprised, but expressed respect for Lin Ye's decision. Before leaving, he provided his contact information, noting that the offer reflected both the alliance's goodwill toward talent and his own personal considerations. Another 2.5 days later, Lin Yi led his team into the Calamity-tiered dungeon, Giant Fall Forest. A system prompt appeared. Entering Giant Fall Forest, recommended level 8 to 15. Moments later, the three were transported inside. Rumor had it that this dungeon was a fragment separated from a larger realm. Though accessible at level 8, its calamity difficulty far exceeded ordinary dungeons. As they stepped forward, two towering creatures several meters tall awoke from slumber. The system identified them as normal monsters, spectral fallen kingdom soldiers. Seeing the monsters emerge, Su Mumu and Baiji immediately activated their skills, telling Lin Yi to leave these two enemies to them. Su Mumu directed the simulated tier to strike a spectral soldier's head, dealing 200 damage, followed by a critical hit for an additional 623 damage. Watching the damage numbers appear, she felt a hint of confusion. At the same time, Baiji joined the fight, unleashing 3 consecutive sword arcs that dealt 450 damage to the spectral soldier. Lin Yi remained on the sidelines as a field instructor, closely observing the enemy's horizontal slashes and charge combos. He couldn't help but note how effective the new equipment was. While Su Mumu and Baiji still fell short of him, their damage output already far surpassed most students of the same level. Before long, the two spectral soldiers were completely shattered. As the group ventured deeper into the dungeon, an intense chill filled the air, stirring an instinctive sense of unease. Lin Yi warned them to stay alert. The first boss was likely about to appear. As his words fell, a creature clad in white armor emerged slowly from a massive crack in the ground. A level 13 white spirit knight. The instant it appeared, Lin Yi activated Heaven-Earth Reversal and unleashed the Inverted Abyss Fall, a terrifying bolt of lightning engulfing the white spirit knight in a blink. Yet in the next moment, its figure burst out violently from the smoke. Baiji reacted at once, activating Blazing Flow Slash, while Su Mumu followed closely behind, directing the simulated tier into the assault. Though the White Spirit Knight was no weak opponent, it had already lost nearly half its HP at the start, and with Su Mumu and Baiji's damage now vastly improved, the battle was firmly under control. As its HP dropped toward a critical threshold, the White Spirit Knight's gaze darkened and it triggered its exclusive skill, Holy Light, instantly restoring its wounds, greatly boosting its attributes, and raising both defenses by 40% under its protective effect. The two of them widened their eyes at the sight. Once its HP dropped to 1/4, it entered an invincible state. This boss was far trickier than expected. Lin Yi explained that this was likely a signature skill the White Spirit Knight possessed before becoming undead. He would draw its attention, while they made sure not to pull aggro. With that, Lin Yi flashed to the front of a large tree. The spot offered little cover, but the sight lines were clear and the distance ideal. For a textbook Knight-type enemy, the optimal choice here would be a ranged attack, most likely a thrown spear. Sure enough, the White Spirit Knight didn't charge immediately. Instead, it first applied a shield that absorbed 300 physical damage, followed by another that absorbed 300 magic damage. Only then did it activate its Knight-exclusive skill, Radiant Javelin. Lin Yi remained in place, making no attempt to dodge as the spear descended. When the explosion smoke cleared, he stepped out calmly. Heaven-Earth Reversal took effect. His HP surged by 1,500 and all attributes rose sharply. The White Spirit Knight clearly hadn't anticipated this outcome. Lin Yi seized the fleeting opening and immediately cast Plunder. with ranged attacks proving ineffective. The next move would almost certainly be a charge. As expected, the White Spirit Knight gripped its spear and launched a direct assault. Lin Yi instantly triggered Blink from the Blink Stone. At the moment of impact, he countered with the inverted Imprison from Clarity. With a dull crash, Lin Yi avoided the charge through Blink and reappeared behind the knight. The White Spirit Knight spun around at once, pressing the attack again. Though Lin Yi seemed suppressed throughout the exchange, it didn't matter. After prolonged stalling, the duration of Holy Light was nearly over. After several more seconds of combat, both the Holy Light and the dual resistance shields finally vanished. Realizing its buffs were gone, the White Spirit Knight didn't hesitate. It turned and fled toward the distance. However, its retreat had already been sealed by Su Mumu and Bai Ji. White chains erupted abruptly from the ground, blocking all escape routes. At the same time, Lin Yi activated two skills at once, Calamity Descends and Abyss Fall. Terrifying blood-red lightning surged like a raging tide, crashing down upon the White Spirit Knight's position. Moments later, the system notification appeared, White Spirit Knight defeated. 8,600 EXP gained. Lin Yi reached level 9, Su Mumu level 7, and Bai Ji level 6. Lin Yi shifted his gaze toward the distant mountaintop. According to the guide, the second boss should be located beyond a waypoint leading up the mountain. Yet after walking for some time, he failed to find any marker mentioned in the guide. Just as doubt arose, 3 vines appeared without warning, instantly dragging the trio above a deep abyss. Once pulled to the center, the vines released their grip. With no footing, they began plummeting downward at extreme speed. Lin Yi shouted a warning. Roll before landing, or the dungeon would register injury and affect the final rating. As they neared the abyss floor, Lin Yi hastily cast a magic barrier to cushion the fall. Scanning the surroundings, he realized they were finally about to meet the legendary Curse Knight. Before he could finish speaking, a black spear shot toward him like a bolt of lightning. A figure slowly emerged from the darkness. It was the gatekeeper boss of Giant's Ruined Forest, the Dark Curse Knight. Taking the strike head-on, Lin Yi broke into a cold sweat. This was beyond his expectations. The enemy could attack without fully revealing itself. Without heaven-earth reversal, he would have fallen instantly. As Lin Yi assessed the situation, the spear piercing his chest was violently withdrawn. The Dark Curse Knight had activated Curse Enchantment, automatically imbuing its weapon with magic damage upon entering combat. The knight then raised its weapon and slashed forward, releasing a sharp blade of energy. It was Moonlight Blade, an unavoidable targeted pursuit skill that bypasses high HP tanks to strike fragile backline targets. The attack curved past Lin Yi, heading straight for Bai Ji and Su Mumu. Bai Ji reacted instantly, raising her greatsword to block head-on. A piercing metallic clash echoed throughout the dungeon. But the gap in power was overwhelming. After a single blow, Bai Ji coughed up blood. Su Mumu quickly fed her a pain relief pill, thinking that Moonlight Blade wasn't the knight's strongest skill, and this was only residual damage after blocking. Thankfully, she had prepared enough consumables. Lin Yi wasted no time and immediately activated Abyss Fall. Blood-red lightning roared down like furious dragons, striking the Dark Curse Knight. Calamity Descends followed immediately, amplifying the lightning's power and fully engulfing the boss. Lin Yi unleashed every skill at once. Yet even after multiple lightning strikes, only 1/3 of the Dark Curse Knight's HP was depleted. Su Mumu's eyes widened. This was damage amplified by a diamond set, yet had only shaved off 1/3 of the boss's HP. She immediately activated her talent and took control of the Bionic Tier. At the same time, she unleashed 2 mage skills, Poison Bubble and Ice Spike. The result was negligible, dealing only 157 damage. Lin Yi sensed danger and charged straight toward the Dark Curse Knight. He raised his staff and smashed it down toward the knight's forehead. The Dark Curse Knight instantly blinked aside, evading the blow. It twisted its body, drew its blade, and chained Rising Dragon Slash with Triple Slash. Sword auras slammed into Lin Yi, yet instead of losing HP, he recovered 1,500 health. The Dark Curse Knight paused in thought. Its gaze locked onto Lin Ye's neck, likely the critical strike point. In the next instant, it struck decisively, releasing a sharp blade of energy. Su Mumu and Bai Ji froze at the sight. But moments later, a figure emerged from the dust. Lin Yi touched his neck calmly. Curse Knight, your strength is impressive. Looks like I'll have to stay fully focused. The Dark Curse Knight stopped, its aggro snapping back onto Lin Yi. Lin Yi dragged the boss through the forest at high speed while signaling his teammates to follow the original plan. As long as he held aggro firmly, even such a durable boss would eventually fall. He felt no concern. Heaven-Earth Reversal with a natural counter to skill-dependent bosses. After a long battle, the Dark Curse Knight's HP finally began to drop steadily. Suddenly, the knight turned and forcefully shifted its aggro. Bai Ji darted aside, slipping behind a nearby tree. Lin Yi sees the opening and cast Calamity descends again, pushing the boss into a near-death state. He chuckled softly. Remember this, Curse Knight. Your opponent is me. I'll stand in front of my teammates, making your attacks meaningless. At the same time, he unleashed his finishing move, Abyss Fall. With a thunderous crash, the Dark Curse Knight's HP bar was completely emptied. The knight collapsed to its knees. Strangely, no reward window appeared. Instead, the ominous purple aura around it turned clear and transparent. It was Lin Ye's first time witnessing such a phenomenon, and before he could process it, a system notification rang out. Dark Curse Knight defeated and surrendered. The Dark Curse Knight permanently disappeared from Giant's Ruin Forest. The dungeon difficulty dropped from Calamity to Nightmare, and due to Lin Ye's influence, Nightmare further dropped to Hard. System notification. Final task completed. Defeat the Dark Curse Knight without taking damage. Unique reward obtained. Summon Dark Curse Knight. Summons a level 15 Golden Dark Curse Knight. Usable below level 20. Duration, 1 hour. Bai Ji stared in awe. You didn't just defeat it. You can summon the Curse Knight for dungeons? You even lowered the dungeon difficulty? Lin Yi patted her head. It wasn't just me. This was a team effort. And thanks to your luck buff, the reward turned out this insane. At that moment, Su Mumu stared ahead in shock. Look, the system notification isn't over yet. Could there be something even more unbelievable?